Padre Pio said there is one sin that makes every prayer fall silent before it reaches heaven. Not blasphemy, not doubt, not even grave moral failure, but something far more hidden and infinitely more dangerous because it disguises itself as virtue. It is a sin that lives in the heart of the faithful, a sin that grows in silence, in routine, in the very act of kneeling before God. He saw it in vision after vision, soul after soul standing before the throne of mercy, their prayers piling up like unopened letters, their voices never heard. And when he finally revealed what this sin was, those who heard him wept. Not because it was difficult to avoid, but because they realized they had been committing it for years. Before we continue, please consider subscribing to the channel and letting us know where you're watching from. We read every single comment and truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to the story. Prayer, Padre Pio understood, is not merely words spoken into the air, not ritual performed by rote, not petition shouted into an empty void. It is a bridge, a living connection between the human heart and the divine will, built stone by stone through faith, through surrender, through the willingness to be changed by the very act of approaching God. But this bridge can be severed, not by God's rejection, for His mercy is infinite and His patience beyond measure, but by the condition of the soul attempting to cross it. A heart can close itself to grace even while the lips continue to move in prayer. A soul can erect walls so high that no petition can escape, no intercession can rise, no cry can reach the ears of the Eternal Father. And the tragedy, Padre Pio said with tears in his eyes, is that the soul often does not know. It believes it is praying. It believes it is heard. It believes the silence is God's will rather than its own barrier. The revelation came to him on a winter night in his cell at San Giovanni Rotondo, in the year before his death, when his body was weakening but his spiritual sight had grown sharper than ever. The monastery was silent, wrapped in that particular stillness that comes in the hours before dawn, when even the world itself seems to hold its breath. Padre Pio had been kneeling for hours, his stigmata burning as they always did during deep intercession, praying for the souls who had written to him, for those who had confessed to him, for those who had never spoken their pain aloud but carried it like stones in their hearts. He prayed without ceasing, as he had done for decades, offering up his suffering as a sacrifice for those who could not pray for themselves. Then the temperature dropped, not gradually, but suddenly, as if winter itself had entered through the walls. His breath became visible in the air. The candle flame beside him flickered wildly, though there was no wind. The atmosphere thickened, became heavy, became dense with presence. Padre Pio did not move. He had felt this before, countless times, throughout his long communion with the supernatural world. He knew what it meant. The veil between worlds, that thin boundary separating the seen from the unseen, the temporal from the eternal, had grown gossamer thin. He was no longer alone. Someone, something, had crossed over, and they had come to him for a reason. The presence did not arrive with fire or thunder, not with angelic chorus or divine proclamation, but slowly, quietly, like morning fog gathering density until it takes human shape. At first, there was only a shimmer in the air before him, a distortion of light that bent and twisted as if reality itself was being folded back to allow something through. Then came the outline, faint as a watercolor brushstroke, then clearer, then solid, then undeniably present. A woman stood before Padre Pio in his cell, her form substantial enough to cast shadow, yet somehow weightless, somehow not quite anchored to the floor beneath her feet. She appeared to be perhaps 50 years in earthly age, dressed simply in the kind of plain Hausa dress a million women wore, her hair drawn back, her hands clasped together as if she had been in the middle of prayer when this interruption occurred. But it was her face that struck him immediately. Confusion lived there, bewilderment that had not yet crystallized into comprehension, and beneath it, rising like dark water, the first waves of terror. Her eyes darted around the cell, trying to understand where she was, trying to make sense of the stone walls and the flickering candle and the figure of the priest before her, and then recognition flooded across her features. She knew him. She had prayed to him during her life, had asked for his intercession, had carried his image in her missal, and whispered his name in her most desperate hours. Her lips moved, forming his name, and then the words came tumbling out in a frantic rush, breathless and desperate and edged with rising panic. She told him she had just come from prayer, from her bedside where she had been kneeling as she did every night, where she had been interceding for her children, for her husband, for the suffering world, for all the intentions she carried in her heart. She had been praying, she insisted, truly praying, pouring out her soul before God as she had done for decades. But something was wrong. Something was terribly, devastatingly wrong. She could not feel his presence. She could not sense heaven's response, the connection that had always been there. That warmth of divine attention she had grown accustomed to had vanished. Her prayers felt like they were falling into a void, echoing in an empty room, bouncing back to her unanswered and unheard. She reached toward Padre Pio, her hands trembling, and asked the question that was tearing her apart. Why was she here, in this strange in-between place that was neither her bedroom nor heaven nor anywhere she recognized? Why had she been pulled away from her prayer? Why did God feel so impossibly distant? Why did her voice, which had spent a lifetime calling out to the Eternal Father, suddenly sound like it was speaking into silence? Padre Pio looked at her, and his face, marked by decades of suffering and mystical communion with both heaven and hell, filled with a sorrow so profound it seemed to age him before her eyes. He knew. He understood what she did not yet understand. He had seen this before, in vision after vision, soul after soul, arriving at this same threshold of devastating realization, and now he would have to reveal to her the truth she had spent her entire earthly life avoiding. Padre Pio spoke gently, his voice carrying the weight of infinite patience and unbearable sorrow, and he asked her to tell him about her prayer life, to describe for him the shape of her devotion, the structure of her communion with God. The woman responded immediately, defensively, her words rushing out as if speed alone could build a wall against whatever truth was approaching. She prayed the rosary daily, she said, every single day, without fail, all 15 decades when time allowed, never missing her morning offering or her evening examination of conscience. She attended Mass, not just on Sundays but often during the week, arriving early to pray before the tabernacle, staying late to make her thanksgiving. She fasted on Fridays and during Advent and Lent, denying herself not just meat, but pleasures, comforts, small luxuries that others indulged without thought. She gave to charity, she said, opened her purse for every collection, donated to missions, supported orphanages, sent money to convents and monasteries. She interceded for others constantly, carried prayer lists that grew longer every year, lifted up the sick and the dying and the lost and the wandering, prayed for her children's salvation and her husband's health and the conversion of sinners across the world. Every box checked, every duty fulfilled, every requirement of faithful Catholic life met with precision and consistency. But Padre Pio did not nod in approval. He did not smile. Instead, he pressed deeper, his questions careful and surgical, each one designed not to wound but to reveal the wound already present. When you prayed, he asked quietly, what was in your heart toward your sister? The woman froze. The rush of words stopped. Silence filled the cell, thick and suffocating. Her mouth opened but nothing emerged. Padre Pio waited, his eyes holding hers with a compassion that made the silence even more unbearable. Then he asked another question, softer still but infinitely more devastating. When you knelt before the tabernacle, who did you refuse to forgive? Her face changed. The defensiveness that had armored her cracked like glass struck by stone. Her expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something darker, something that looked like shame trying to disguise itself as righteousness. She began to justify, the words coming slower now, more measured, more careful. She explained that certain people do not deserve forgiveness, that some wounds run too deep, that betrayal leaves scars that never fully heal. Her sister had said unforgivable things, had turned the family against her, had stolen what was rightfully hers and never shown remorse. Her former friend had spread lies, had broken confidences, had damaged her reputation in ways that could never be repaired. These were not small offenses, she insisted. These were profound violations of trust and love and family bond. God understands, she said, her voice rising with the conviction of years of rehearsed justification. God understands that her anger is righteous, that her distance is wisdom, that her refusal to reconcile is not hardness of heart but proper boundaries, healthy self-protection, just consequence for unjust action. Padre Pio listened without interruption, without judgment, his eyes filled with unbearable compassion, the kind of compassion that sees everything and condemns nothing, but also refuses to participate in comfortable lies. When she finally fell silent, when her justifications exhausted themselves, he asked the question that changed everything, the question that shattered the carefully constructed fortress of her self-righteousness. Did you believe God would hear you while you refused to hear the cries of those who hurt you? The cell dissolved. The stone walls, the flickering candle, the narrow bed, the crucifix hanging in shadow, all of it melted away like morning mist burned off by rising sun, and in its place came memory, came history, came the unfiltered record of a life lived in the sight of God who sees not what is presented but what is true. Padre Pio and the woman stood together in a space that was neither physical nor purely spiritual, a threshold realm where time moved differently, where years could be compressed into moments, and moments expanded into eternity, and they witnessed her life replaying in fragments. Not the grand prayers or public devotions, not the rosaries counted, or the masses attended, or the charitable donations made, but the small moments, the hidden moments, the moments she had forgotten or chosen not to remember, a sister's apology left unanswered. The memory materialized before them with crystalline clarity, her sister standing in the doorway of her home, eyes red from crying, voice shaking with vulnerability, saying she was sorry, saying she had been wrong, saying she wanted to rebuild what had been broken, and the woman, younger then but already hardened, listening in silence, arms crossed, face impassive, letting the apology fall to the floor like dropped coins that she refused to pick up, then closing the door without a word. A neighbor's greeting met with cold silence, another fragment, another moment. The woman walking past someone who had once been a friend, someone who smiled tentatively and said good morning, and the woman looking straight ahead as if that person did not exist, as if they had become invisible through their offense, as if the simple act of acknowledging their humanity would somehow diminish her own dignity. A husband's attempt at reconciliation dismissed with bitterness. The vision showed her kitchen, her husband standing at the counter trying to explain himself, trying to apologize for a forgotten anniversary or a harsh word spoken in stress, and the woman wielding her silence like a weapon, punishing him with coldness, making him pay for his imperfection through emotional withdrawal that lasted days. Years of prayers rising from her lips, while her heart remained clenched like a fist around old grievances. The memories layered upon each other now, overlapping, showing a pattern that had been invisible to her during life, but was devastatingly clear from this perspective. The vision showed her kneeling in church, rosary beads moving through her fingers, mouth forming the words of the Hail Mary, but her mind, her heart, her inner attention was elsewhere. She was nursing grudges, replaying past hurts, rehearsing old arguments and thinking of all the things she should have said, hardening her heart against those who had wronged her, even as she asked God to soften his judgment toward her. Every prayer was sincere in its words but poisoned at its source. She had meant every petition, every intercession, every plea for mercy, but the prayers rose from a heart that refused to show mercy, from lips that would not speak forgiveness, from a soul that held others in chains while begging for its own freedom. The flashbacks revealed what she had never been willing to face during her earthly existence. She had convinced herself that her anger was justice, that her unforgiveness was strength, that her cold silence was dignity. She had baptized her resentment in the language of righteousness, had dressed her bitterness in the robes of proper boundaries, had called her hardness of heart wisdom when it was nothing more than pride refusing to bend. But heaven saw it differently. Heaven saw a woman praying with one hand while pushing away grace with the other, building walls around her heart, and then wondering why God felt distant, demanding mercy while dispensing judgment, asking for love while withholding it from everyone who had failed her imperfect standards. The visions faded, and they stood once more in that threshold space between worlds, and Padre Pio spoke the truth she had been avoiding for her entire earthly existence, the truth that had been hidden in plain sight throughout every decade of the Rosary, every petition whispered in the silence of her room, every mass attended with outward devotion and inward coldness. The sin that blocked every prayer, the barrier that made her voice inaudible to heaven, the wall that separated her from the mercy she so desperately sought, was unforgiveness, not the dramatic sins she had feared, not adultery or murder or apostasy or the grand theatrical rebellions that make headlines and fill confessionals with shame, but the quiet, justified resentment she had nurtured for decades, the carefully maintained grudges she had fed like houseplants, watering them with replayed memories and fertilizing them with righteous anger. Padre Pio explained with a gentleness that somehow made the truth even more devastating that God cannot pour mercy into a heart that refuses to show mercy, cannot grant forgiveness to a soul that withholds forgiveness, cannot answer prayers that rise from a spirit clenched tight around bitterness and vengeance. The theological reality was inescapable, written into the very structure of prayer itself, embedded in the words Christ himself taught his disciples to speak. The Lord's Prayer, which she had recited thousands upon thousands of times, contains within it a condition, a requirement, a mirror that reflects back to the one praying exactly what they are offering to others. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Not forgive us despite how we treat others, not forgive us regardless of our hardness of heart, but forgive us in the exact same measure, with the exact same generosity or stinginess, with the exact same openness or closure that we extend to those who have wounded us. Every single time she prayed those words while harboring unforgiveness, while nursing her grudges, while refusing reconciliation with her sister and her neighbor and all those who had failed her, she was asking God to treat her exactly as she treated them, with coldness, with distance, with closed doors, with silence, with the withdrawal of presence, with the refusal to hear, to respond, to extend the olive branch. She had been praying for her own spiritual isolation without realizing it, had been asking heaven to mirror back to her the very hardness she showed to others, had been constructing her own prison, and then wondering why she felt confined. The theological reality crashed down upon her like a wave that had been building for a lifetime. Her prayers were not rejected by God, not dismissed by divine caprice, not ignored because she was unworthy or unloved or forgotten. They were blocked by her own hardened heart. They could not rise because the very vessel from which they emerged was sealed at the bottom, was closed to the flow of grace that only moves in circles, that only pours into those who are willing to pour it out again, that only fills those who remain open and vulnerable and willing to release what they most want to hold. The woman wept, not the defensive tears of self-pity or the angry tears of one being falsely accused, but the deep, wrenching tears of someone finally understanding, finally seeing herself as she truly was, rather than as she had imagined herself to be. She wept for the decades wasted, for the relationships destroyed, for the prayers that had died stillborn because she had strangled them with her own bitterness. She wept for her sister standing in the doorway, for her neighbor's unanswered greeting, for her husband's repeated attempts to bridge the chasm she insisted on maintaining. But Padre Pio, his face still marked by that unbearable compassion, spoke again. "Not all is lost," he said. "Even now, even here, in this threshold space between life and eternity, between the choices already made and the judgment still to come, she could choose. She must choose now what she had refused to choose in life." The vision ended as suddenly as it had begun. The woman's form dissolved into light, into possibility, into the choice she would make in realms beyond Padre Pio's sight, and he was alone again in his cell, the stone walls solid once more, the candles still flickering in the pre-dawn darkness, the monastery wrapped in that profound silence that comes before the world awakens. But he was not the same. He was never the same after these encounters with the supernatural world, these glimpses behind the veil that separated the temporal from the eternal. He carried the weight of what he had witnessed, and it pressed upon his heart like a physical burden, like stones laid upon his chest that made every breath an effort and every prayer a cry from the depths. He understood now, with even greater clarity than before, the terrible tragedy unfolding every single day across the world, in a million bedrooms and churches and quiet moments of supposed devotion. Thousands upon thousands of faithful souls, good people who loved God and desired heaven and performed all the outward requirements of religious life, were praying daily, while unknowingly strangling their own prayers with resentment. Unforgiveness is the silent assassin of prayer, not the obvious destroyer, not the dramatic rebellion that announces itself with trumpets and makes itself known through public scandal, but the quiet killer that works in shadow and secrecy. It requires no grand gesture, no moment of apostasy, no conscious rejection of God. It requires only the quiet nursing of old wounds, the careful maintenance of grudges, the refusal to release those who have caused pain. It lives in the space between the words of prayer and the condition of the heart, in the gap between what is spoken and what is felt, in the chasm between the mercy we beg for and the mercy we refuse to extend. A person can recite every prayer in the book, can attend Mass daily, can fast until the body weakens and give until the purse empties, and still remain spiritually deaf and dumb if unforgiveness has taken root in the soul. The prayers rise, yes. The words are formed, yes. The petitions are voiced with sincerity and desperate hope, but they cannot break through the barrier the person has erected with their own hardened heart. God does not ignore them. Heaven does not turn away. The Father does not close his ears to his children. But the bridge is broken, severed not from his side but from ours, cut by the very hand that then reaches across the chasm, wondering why it cannot touch the divine. Padre Pio spent his remaining years warning anyone who would listen, sharing this vision with those who came to confession, with those who sought his counsel, with the friars who served alongside him and would carry his message after his death. Before every prayer, he would say, "Examine your heart, not just your actions, not just your outward sins, not just the obvious failings that society condemns or the church forbids, but the hidden landscape of your interior life. Who have you not forgiven? What grudge are you protecting like a treasure when it is actually poison? What pain are you refusing to release, clutching it to your chest as if letting it go would somehow diminish you when in truth it is the holding on that shrinks the soul and closes the door to grace? What relationship have you abandoned because reconciliation feels too costly or humiliating or difficult? Who have you erased from your life, made invisible through your silence, punished with your absence, condemned with your coldness? These are not rhetorical questions. They are examinations of conscience more urgent than any other, because they determine whether your prayers can rise or whether they fall back upon you like rain on stone. The final truth, the devastating and liberating reality that Padre Pio proclaimed until his last breath, echoes still for all who have ears to hear. Your prayers are not blocked by God's unwillingness to hear, but by your unwillingness to forgive. Release those who hurt you. Extend the mercy you seek. Open the doors you have bolted shut, and watch your prayers finally break through to heaven.